The Great Hall of Axir Prime glowed with golden light. Thousands of species from across the galaxy had gathered to watch the ceremony. Fleet Commander Zarthek walked slowly toward the throne, his forearms held wide in the traditional pose of victory. His silver skin caught the light, making him shine like a star. The High Magistrate Velkara stood from her seat. She held a curved medal above her head. The crowd fell silent. For 847 victories, Velkara announced, her voice echoing through the massive chamber. For bringing civilization to the wild corners of space. For the glory of the hegemony, we grant you the Crescent of Infinite Victory. Zarthek bowed his head. The medal was placed around his neck. It was heavy, made from metals taken from conquered worlds. He had dreamed of this moment for decades. Around him the crowd erupted in cheers. His species, the Krell, were master warriors. He had proven himself the greatest among them. After the ceremony, Zarthek walked through the marble corridors of the council building. His assistant, a young Krell named Torvan, hurried beside him. "Commander, the council wants to meet with you immediately," Torvan said. Zarthek nodded. He had expected this. The hegemony did not give medals without wanting something in return. The council chamber was darker than the Great Hall. 12 species sat around a circular table, representatives of the oldest and most powerful races in the hegemony. Velkara sat at the head of the table. "Commander Zarthek," she began, "we have a new mission for you." A hologram appeared in the center of the table. It showed a small yellow star with several planets orbiting it. Zarthek recognized it immediately. Every military officer in the hegemony knew about this system. "The Sol system," Zarthek said. "The humans." "Yes," Velkara replied. Her face showed disgust. "For 200 years we have offered them the chance to join our great civilization. They have refused every time. They have even colonized over 200 worlds without our permission." A counselor from the Vex species spoke up. His insect-like features twitched with annoyance. "They are primitives from a death world. Their planet is a nightmare of extreme weather, dangerous animals, and deadly diseases. They only discovered faster than light travel 300 years ago. They got lucky, nothing more." Another counselor added, "They have no right to expand without our guidance. They are children playing with adult technology." Zarthek studied the hologram. He had read reports about humans. They were a young species, aggressive and stubborn. Their ships were inferior to hegemony designs. Their weapons were outdated. They had no psionic abilities like many advanced races. "On paper, they should be easy to defeat. What are your orders?" Zarthek asked. Velkara smiled. "Bring them into the hegemony. By force if necessary. We vote unanimously for immediate military action." Zarthek felt a strange hesitation. Something about this mission felt different, but he pushed the feeling aside. He had conquered hundreds of worlds. This would be no different. "I will need a substantial fleet," he said. "Humans are spread across many systems. They will need to be pacified quickly. You will have whatever you need," Velkara promised. Over the next 3 months, Zarthek assembled his armada. Ships arrived from every corner of the hegemony. Battleships the size of small moons. Carriers filled with fighter craft. Destroyers, cruisers, support vessels. The fleet grew larger every day. The other races of the hegemony watched with excitement. This would be the largest military operation in a generation. Young officers competed for positions in the fleet. It was a chance for glory, for advancement, for honor. Captain Sarah Chen watched the preparations from a distance. She was one of only 3 humans who lived on Axir Prime, serving as a diplomatic liaison. No one paid much attention to her. She was small, weak-looking compared to most species. Her single head and 2 arms seemed inadequate next to species with multiple limbs or massive bodies. She sent encrypted messages back to Earth every day, warning them, telling them what was coming. The response from her superiors was always the same. "We know. We are ready." Sarah wished she could believe that. She had seen the hegemony war machine in action. She had watched footage of their conquests. They had crushed civilizations far older and more advanced than humanity. What chance did her people have? On the launch day, Sarah stood in the observation gallery. Below her, the fleet stretched out like a metal ocean. 10,000 ships, more firepower than most people could imagine, enough to destroy entire planets. Zarthek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. It was the largest ship in the fleet, a battleship 5 kilometers long. Around him, his officers worked at their stations, checking systems, running diagnostics. All ships report ready, Commander, Torvin said. Zarthek looked at the view screen. He could see Earth on the star charts marked in red, a small blue world, third from its sun. It looked peaceful, harmless. Set course for Sol, he commanded. Maximum speed. Yes, Commander. The fleet activated their hyperdrives. One by one, the massive ships tore holes in space and disappeared into streams of light. The journey would take 2 weeks. When they arrived, Zarthek expected the war to be over within a month. Maybe less. In his private quarters that night, Zarthek reviewed files on human military capability. Their ships were smaller than hegemony vessels. Their weapons used primitive chemical propulsion in many cases. They relied on kinetic weapons and missiles rather than energy beams. They had no shields, only thick armor plating. The report concluded that human military technology was at least 50 years behind the hegemony standard, possibly more. Zarthek noticed one odd detail in the files. Every species the hegemony had encountered fell into one of 2 categories: prey species or predator species. Prey species were peaceful, scientific, artistic. They were easy to integrate into the hegemony. Predator species were aggressive, territorial, military-focused. They required more force to subdue. Humans were listed as predators. But the note said something unusual. Earth had more apex predators per square kilometer than any other known inhabited world. And humans had hunted most of them to extinction. They were predators who had defeated all other predators on their planet. Zarthek closed the file. It did not matter. The hegemony had defeated predator species before. Humans would be no different. On Earth, Admiral Marcus Webb stood in the command center deep below the surface. Screens covered every wall, showing data from across the solar system, defense platforms, hidden weapons, ships waiting in the dark. They will be here in 2 weeks, his tactical officer said. Webb nodded. Good. We have been preparing for this for a long time. Make sure every ship captain knows the plan. No improvising. We stick to the strategy. Sir, they outnumber us 10 to 1. Maybe more. Webb smiled grimly. Numbers are not everything. They are about to learn what it means to fight someone who refuses to lose. They think we are primitive. Let them think that. Right up until we show them what Deathworlders can do. The 2 weeks passed quickly. The hegemony fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Zarthek stood on his bridge looking at the distant sun. Send the message, he ordered. Standard terms of surrender. The message was broadcast across all frequencies. It offered humans a choice. Join the hegemony peacefully or be conquered. They had 1 hour to respond. The response came in 45 minutes. It was short. Only 3 words in the human language called English. Torvin translated it. Commander, the message says, come and take it. The bridge fell silent. Then someone laughed. Then others joined in. The arrogance of these primitives was amusing. Zarthek did not laugh. Something cold had settled in his chest. Those 3 words carried a weight he did not expect. They were not the words of a species that would surrender easily. All ships, he commanded. Battle formation. We advance on Earth. Prepare to demonstrate our power. The fleet moved forward, entering the Sol system. The greatest armada in hegemony history was going to war. None of them knew what was waiting for them in the dark. The hegemony fleet moved through the darkness of space like a swarm of metal locusts. Zarthek watched the tactical display as his ships spread out in the classic attack formation, 3 walls of vessels, each supporting the others. It was a formation that had broken 1,000 defensive lines. Commander, we are detecting something, the sensor officer said. Her tentacles moved rapidly across her station. Small structures throughout the system. Hundreds of them, thousands. Zarthek frowned. Defense stations? Unknown. They are too small for military installations. They appear to be mining facilities, research stations, habitation modules. Sir, the humans have built structures everywhere in this system. Every planet, every moon, even the asteroid belt. Torvin looked worried. That is unusual. Most species concentrate their populations. They are spreading their resources thin, Zarthek decided. It makes them easier to defeat. All units advance toward the inner planets. We will demonstrate our power with a strike on their outer stations first. The fleet moved toward a small moon near Neptune. According to their scans, it held a research station with about 500 humans. A gentle tap, Zarthek thought. Enough to show them what they faced. Weapons range in 30 seconds, the weapons officer reported. Fire when ready. Target the station only. Minimal civilian casualties. The Eternal Dominion and 3 escort ships fired their main batteries. Beams of concentrated energy crossed the distance in seconds. They struck the research station, but the station did not explode. Instead, shields flared to life. Primitive shields, yes, but stronger than expected. The station returned fire immediately. Missiles launched from hidden tubes. Not energy weapons, but physical rockets that accelerated to incredible speeds. Evasive action, Zarthek ordered. The escorts moved, but one was too slow. 3 missiles struck its hull. The explosions were enormous. The escort listed to one side, atmosphere venting from multiple breaches. Damage report, Zarthek demanded. The Swift Justice has lost main power. Hull breached in 7 sections. They are requesting assistance. Zarthek stared at the screen. One station with 500 humans had crippled a ship designed to fight entire planetary fleets. How? Sir, the humans are broadcasting a message, the communications officer said. Play it. A human voice filled the bridge. It spoke in standard galactic common. This is Pluto Research Station. You fired on civilian scientists. This is your only warning. Leave our system now, Torvin bristled. They dare threaten us after we show mercy. We could have destroyed them. Pull back, Zarthek ordered. Regroup with the main fleet. As they retreated, sensors showed something new. Human ships were appearing throughout the system. Small craft mostly, destroyers and frigates. They were not advancing to attack. They were moving away, heading toward the inner planets. They flee already, one of the bridge officers said. As expected, but Zarthek was not convinced. Something felt wrong. Why did the humans militarize every structure in their system? Why were their retreat routes so organized? Pursue them, Belkara ordered over the communications channel. Do not let them regroup at Earth, destroy them in the void. Zarthek wanted to refuse. His instincts screamed at him to be careful. But he had his orders. All ships pursued course. We will catch them between Jupiter and Mars. The fleet accelerated. They entered the asteroid belt, a vast ring of rocks orbiting between Mars and Jupiter. The human ships were just ahead, fleeing deeper into the belt. Contact in 5 minutes, Torvin reported. Their ships are slower than ours. We will overtake them easily. Zarthek studied the tactical display. The human ships were not moving in a panic. They were following precise paths through the asteroids, almost like they knew exactly where to go. Commander! The sensor officer shouted. Energy spikes. All around us. The asteroids came alive. What Zarthek had thought were simple rocks suddenly lit up with power signatures. Dozens of them. Hundreds. They had been hiding, cold and dark, indistinguishable from the natural asteroids around them. They were weapons platforms. And they all fired at once. The hegemony fleet was caught in a crossfire. Missiles streaked from every direction, not energy weapons that could be dodged or deflected. These were physical projectiles moving at percentages of light speed. When they struck, they hit with the force of small nuclear weapons, shields up. Return fire! Get us out of here! Zarthek ordered, but the chaos was overwhelming. Ships exploded. The hammer of justice broke in half when 3 missiles struck its reactor core. The carrier Glorious Purpose listed as fighters spilled from its damaged bays like insects from a kicked nest. Everywhere Zarthek looked, his ships were dying, and then the human ships stopped fleeing. They turned around. The small human destroyers attacked with vicious precision. They did not fight like any enemy Zarthek had faced before. They used the asteroids for cover, appearing just long enough to fire before vanishing again. They coordinated perfectly, focusing fire on damaged ships, finishing off the wounded before moving to the next target. Mining vessels approaching. Someone shouted. Zarthek saw them on the screen. Large industrial ships designed for breaking apart asteroids. They were not military vessels. They were civilian craft. But they were accelerating toward his fleet at ramming speed. The first mining ship struck a cruiser head-on. The industrial vessel was heavily armored for its work in the belt. It punched through the cruiser's shields and embedded itself in the hull. The explosion destroyed both ships. More mining vessels followed. Some carried loads of ore that they ejected at high speeds, turning chunks of metal and rock into devastating shotgun blasts. Others simply rammed, sacrificing themselves to destroy larger vessels. Civilian ships, Torvin shouted. They are using civilian ships as weapons. They are all weapons, Zarthek realized with horror. Every station, every facility, every ship. They have militarized their entire civilization. The battle lasted 2 hours. When the hegemony fleet finally broke free of the asteroid belt, they had lost over 200 ships. Another 100 were damaged. The humans lost perhaps 20 vessels and a handful of the civilian craft. Zarthek stood on his bridge, surrounded by damage reports and casualty lists. Around him, his officers were silent. They had expected an easy victory. Instead, they had been mauled. "Get me a status report on all ships," Zarthek commanded quietly. "Torvan, send a message to Axior Prime. We need reinforcements." "Sir, the Council will want to know how we lost so many ships to a primitive species." Zarthek turned to his assistant. His 4 eyes were hard. "Tell them we underestimated the enemy. Tell them these humans are not like anyone we have faced before. They do not fight to win territory or glory. They fight like cornered animals. Every single one of them." Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka sat in the cockpit of her fighter, drifting among the asteroids. Her hands were shaking. She had destroyed 3 hegemony ships today. She had watched her squadron leader die when his fighter was caught by a beam weapon. She had seen a mining ship piloted by her friend from college ram a battleship. The radio crackled. "All units fall back to Mars orbit, well done. The enemy is retreating." Yuki allowed herself a small smile. They had won the first battle. But she knew this was only the beginning. The hegemony had thousands of ships. They had only hurt them today, not beaten them. On the Eternal Dominion, Zarthek received the Council's response. Reinforcements were being sent. 5,000 additional ships. The Council was angry but confident. They would crush these humans with overwhelming force. Zarthek was not so sure. He had read about human history during the flight to Sol. He had learned about their wars, their conflicts, their endless fighting. One thing stood out to him. Humans never surrendered easily. They could lose battle after battle and still keep fighting. They had a concept in their history called Pyrrhic victory, where winning cost so much that it was the same as losing. He wondered if the hegemony was about to learn what that felt like. On Mars, Admiral Webb reviewed the battle reports. The ambush had worked perfectly, but the cost had been high. 23 ships lost, over 5,000 people dead, and the hegemony fleet was still mostly intact. "Sir, intelligence reports the hegemony is calling for reinforcements," his tactical officer said. Webb nodded. He had expected that. "Good. Let them send more ships into our system. Every ship that comes here is a ship that is not defending their territory. We will bleed them until they understand. This is our home, and we will defend it with everything we have." He looked at the display showing Earth, the blue marble that held billions of his fellow humans. They were counting on him. On all of them. "Prepare the next phase," Webb ordered. "We are going to show them what happens when you invade a Deathworlder's territory. This fight is just beginning." The reinforcements arrived 3 weeks later. 5,000 fresh ships joined Zarthek's battered fleet, bringing his total strength to 15,000 vessels. It was the largest military force the hegemony had assembled in 500 years. Surely it would be enough. Velkara contacted him personally. Her image appeared on the view screen, her face showing impatience and displeasure. "Commander, the Council grows weary of waiting. You have the largest fleet in our history. Why have you not advanced on Earth?" Zarthek kept his expression neutral. "High Magistrate, we are studying the enemy. They have proven more capable than our initial intelligence suggested. They are primitives with outdated weapons. You outnumber them significantly. Attack and be done with this." The transmission ended. Zarthek had no choice. He gave the order to advance. This time he was more careful. The fleet moved slowly, scanning every asteroid, every piece of debris. They found more hidden weapons platforms and destroyed them from a distance. They located the human defensive positions around Mars and Jupiter. The humans had fortified both planets heavily. "We will bypass Mars," Zarthek decided. "Strike directly at Earth, force them to fight in the open." But the humans did not cooperate. As the hegemony fleet moved toward Earth, human ships appeared from everywhere. They came from behind the moon, from orbital stations, from hidden positions among Earth's satellites. Hundreds of ships, coordinating their attacks with perfect precision. Dr. James Okonkwo watched the battle from the command center beneath Geneva. He was not a military man. He was a xenobiologist and strategist, brought in to advise on alien species behavior. His screen showed tactical data, but his mind was on biology. "Admiral Webb," he said over the communications channel, "they are still fighting like they fought the other species. Formation-based predictable patterns. They expect us to do the same. Webb's voice came back. What are you suggesting, Doctor? Use our advantage. We evolved on a death world. Our reaction times are faster. Our pattern recognition is superior. We handle stress better than any species they have encountered. Stop fighting like they expect and start fighting like humans. Webb was silent for a moment. Then, all ships, new orders. Break formation. Engage at will. Use your initiative. Show them what human warfare looks like. The change was immediate. The organized human defensive line dissolved. Instead, every ship became an independent hunter. They used every trick humans had learned from thousands of years of warfare on Earth. Fighter pilots used the sun to blind enemy sensors before attacking. Destroyers hid in Earth's shadow and ambushed passing ships. Cruisers used the moon's gravity to slingshot themselves into attack runs at impossible speeds. Submarines designed for underwater combat had been modified for space and attached themselves to enemy hulls like parasites, drilling through armor. The hegemony forces were in chaos. They had trained for organized warfare, fleet against fleet. They had never faced an enemy where every ship acted independently, where tactics changed minute by minute, where the impossible became routine. Zarthek watched in growing horror as his formations broke apart. Ships collided as they tried to respond to attacks from multiple directions. His captains called for orders, for guidance, for someone to tell them what to do. But there was no counter to what the humans were doing. They were not fighting a battle. They were hunting. Sir, the carrier Endless Dawn reports borders. Torvin shouted. Borders? How the answer appeared on screen. Human soldiers in powered armor had attached themselves to the hull during a fighter attack. They cut through the outer layers and entered the ship directly. Security footage showed them moving through the corridors of the carrier. The hegemony soldiers tried to fight back. They outnumbered the human boarders 10-1. But the humans moved like nothing the hegemony had ever seen. Their reaction time was inhuman. They anticipated attacks before they happened. They used their environment, turning corners into kill zones, venting atmosphere to slow their enemies using zero gravity to their advantage. One human soldier, a woman named Sergeant Rodriguez, killed 12 hegemony soldiers in 3 minutes. She moved through the ship like death itself, her armor covered in alien blood. When she reached the carrier's bridge, she executed the captain and then simply left, leaving the ship leaderless and in chaos. They are monsters, one of Zarthek's officers whispered. They fight like demons. Dr. Okonkwo explained it to his staff during a brief pause in the fighting. The hegemony species evolved on garden worlds. Low gravity, abundant resources, few predators. They developed spaceflight before they developed advanced warfare. Humans are different. We spent 300,000 years surviving on a planet that was actively trying to kill us. Ice ages, droughts, predators that could run faster than us, that were stronger than us. Diseases that killed millions. And each other. We fought wars for thousands of years before we ever left our planet. War is in our DNA. A young officer raised his hand. But Doctor, we are not stronger or faster than many species. Our technology is behind theirs. How are we winning? Okonkwo smiled grimly. Because we are adaptable. Every other species specializes. They are good at one thing. Humans are decent at everything. We can survive in deserts, jungles, tundra, mountains. We eat almost anything. We can run for hours, swim for miles, climb vertical surfaces, and fight in any environment. And most importantly, we never give up. A predator species hunts until it succeeds or until it is too injured to continue. Humans hunt until we win or until we are dead. There is no middle ground. The battle for Earth orbit lasted 6 days. The hegemony fleet surrounded the planet, but they could not break through the defensive grid. Every time they tried to advance, human ships appeared from unexpected directions. The humans used Earth's radiation belts as weapons, herding enemy ships into high radiation zones that damaged their systems. They used debris from destroyed ships as cover. They even used old satellites as improvised missiles. On the 7th day, Zarthek realized he had lost 4,000 ships. Over a quarter of his fleet, and they had not captured a single human world, not one. Belkara's next communication was delivered in person. She arrived at the flagship with an escort of the hegemony's elite guard. Her face was cold with fury. You have failed, she said without greeting. 4,000 ships, tens of thousands of our people dead, and you have not conquered even one human planet. Zarthek met her eyes. High Magistrate, with respect, we are not fighting a conventional enemy. The humans do not follow standard military doctrine. They have weaponized everything. Their mining ships, their research stations, their civilian vessels. Every human in this system is a soldier. Every structure is a fortress. We cannot defeat them without destroying the entire system. Then destroy it, Velkara said coldly. I did not come here to hear excuses. I came to take command. You are relieved, Commander Zarthek. You will return to Axir Prime to face judgment. Zarthek felt the weight of shame but also relief. He had seen enough death. Who will replace me? Commander Kelvor of the Vex Royal Guard. He has experience in difficult campaigns. Zarthek knew what that meant. Kelvor was known for his brutality. He had pacified rebellions by destroying entire cities. He used forbidden weapons. He did not care about civilian casualties. High Magistrate, I urge you to reconsider. The humans are not like other species. If you escalate, silence. Velkara's voice echoed through the bridge. You have proven yourself incompetent. Guards escort the former commander to his quarters. He is under arrest. As guards led him away, Zarthek took one last look at the view screen. Earth hung there, blue and beautiful and defiant. He thought about the humans down on that planet. Billions of them. Every single one ready to fight. Every single one refusing to surrender. He had fought for the hegemony for 70 years. He had conquered hundreds of worlds, but he had never met anyone like humans. They were not the strongest species. They were not the smartest. They were not the most advanced. But they were the most dangerous, because they simply would not stop. As the guard sealed his quarters, Zarthek sat on his bunk and thought about what came next. Kelvor would use biological weapons or nuclear bombardment. He would try to break the humans through terror. And Zarthek knew with absolute certainty that it would not work. It would only make them angrier. It would only make them more determined. The hegemony had kicked a sleeping giant, and now that giant was fully awake and very, very angry. On Earth, Admiral Webb received reports of the command change. His intelligence officers had files on Kelvor. They knew what he was capable of. He is going to use weapons of mass destruction, Webb told his staff. Chemical, biological, maybe nuclear. He will try to terrorize us into surrender. Can we stop him? Someone asked. Webb looked around the room at the tired, determined faces of his people. We can try. But if we cannot, if he attacks our civilians, then the rules change. If the hegemony wants total war, we will give them total war. And we will show them what it means to make an enemy of humanity. The room was silent. Everyone understood what that meant. If the hegemony forced them to it, Earth would take the war to them. They would strike at the hegemony's heart. They would show these conquerors what it felt like to be invaded, what it felt like to have their homes threatened. 6 months had passed since Commander Kelvor took control of the hegemony fleet. 6 months of grinding, brutal warfare. The space around Mars had become a graveyard of ships. Debris fields stretched for thousands of kilometers. The darkness between planets was lit by the fires of dying vessels. Kelvor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Vengeance Absolute. He was taller than Zarthek, his insectoid body covered in black armor. His multiple eyes watched the tactical displays with cold calculation. Status, he demanded. His tactical officer, a nervous Krell, reported quickly. We control the space between Jupiter and Mars. The humans hold Mars, Earth, and the inner planets. They have fortified the moon. Every attempt to advance has been repelled. Casualties? 7,000 ships lost. Another 2,000 damaged beyond combat capability. Kelvor's mandibles clicked in anger. Unacceptable. We have the superior force. Why are these primitives still fighting? No one answered. They had all learned that Kelvor did not want explanations. He wanted results. Captain Maria Reeves sat in the command chair of the carrier Indomitable, orbiting Mars. Her ship had been in continuous combat for 6 months. The crew was exhausted. Supplies were running low, but they were still fighting. Captain, we have incoming, her sensor officer reported. Hegemony ships, 200 contacts. They are advancing on Mars Station Alpha. Launch all fighters. Coordinate with the defense grid. We cannot let them break through. The fighters launched, small specks against the enormous hegemony battleships. But those small fighters were piloted by humans who had been fighting for months, learning every weakness in hegemony ships, perfecting every tactic. Lieutenant Chen, no relation to the diplomat Sarah Chen, led her fighter squadron through the enemy formation. Her fingers danced across the controls, her reaction time making the fighters seem like an extension of her body. She destroyed one ship, then another, then dove through the explosion to attack a third. Fox 3, I am hit, one of her pilots called. Eject, I'm coming for you. Chen changed course, her fighter screaming toward her wingman's position. This was the pattern of the war now. Constant attacks, constant defense, constant loss. Neither side could gain the upper hand. The hegemony could not break the human defenses. The humans could not push the hegemony out of their system. It had become a war of attrition, and everyone was losing. Admiral Webb looked older than his years. The stress of command had aged him. He stood in the command center studying casualty reports. 50,000 dead, 100,000 wounded. The numbers kept growing. Dr. Okonkwo entered the command center. He looked as tired as Webb felt. Admiral, we need to talk about our situation. I know the situation, Doctor. We are holding, but barely. That is not what I mean. I have been analyzing hegemony psychology. They are not like us. When they fight a war, they expect it to end quickly. Victory or defeat, they make their decision and move on. They do not understand wars of attrition. They do not understand fighting for years with no clear winner. Webb turned to face him. What are you saying? I am saying their morale is breaking. They have lost thousands of ships. They have been fighting us for 6 months and have nothing to show for it. They are starting to fear us. But there is a danger. Cornered animals are unpredictable. They might do something desperate. As if summoning it by speaking, alarms began blaring throughout the command center. Admiral, we are detecting launch signatures from the hegemony fleet. Multiple missiles. They are heading toward Mars. Webb felt his blood turn cold. What kind of missiles? Bioweapons, sir. They are launching biological weapons at Mars City. The room erupted in activity. Commands were shouted. Defense systems activated. But everyone knew the truth. The missiles were fast. The distance was short. They would not be able to intercept them all. In his cell aboard the Eternal Dominion, Zarthek felt the ship shudder as weapons were launched. He knew immediately what was happening. Kelvor was using the forbidden weapons. The weapons that the hegemony had promised to never use after the Plague Wars 500 years ago. Zarthek made a decision. It would likely cost him his life, but he could not stand by and watch genocide. He accessed the ship's computer using an old access code he had never deleted. He sent an encrypted message on a frequency he had memorized. A frequency he had learned from Sarah Chen during a diplomatic function years ago. A frequency that would reach the humans. The message was simple. Bioweapon attack on Mars City. Vector 042-18309, you have 4 minutes. I'm sorry. On Mars, the defense grid sprang to life. Interceptor missiles launched. Point defense lasers fired. The human defenders threw everything they had at the incoming bioweapons. They stopped 94 of the 100 missiles. 6 got through. Mars City was a dome complex housing 3 million people. The bioweapons struck the outer domes. Emergency systems activated immediately. Sealing sections, evacuating people, flooding contaminated areas with sterilization protocols. The humans had received Zarthek's warning. Those 4 minutes had saved millions of lives, but the 6 missiles still killed 8,000 people before the bioagent was contained. Admiral Webb stood silently as the reports came in. 8,000 dead. The faces of those people would haunt his dreams. Behind him, his staff waited for orders. Get me a secure channel to the War Council. Webb said quietly, "It is time." The War Council met in a bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. They were the leaders of the United Earth government. When Webb's face appeared on their screens, they could see the fury in his eyes. They used biological weapons, Webb said. They targeted civilians. They have broken every rule of warfare. I am requesting authorization to implement Operation Prometheus. The president of the United Earth government, a woman named Zhang Wei, looked at the other council members. Operation Prometheus was the contingency plan, the one they had hoped to never use. It meant taking the war to the hegemony, invading their space, attacking their worlds. How did we survive the bioweapon attack? Zhang asked. We received a warning from the hegemony fleet, from the former commander they arrested. One of them helped us. Yes, Madam President. Not all of them are monsters. But the one who ordered this attack is. And if we do not respond with overwhelming force, he will do it again. Next time they will target Earth. Billions will die. The vote was unanimous. Operation Prometheus was authorized. In his cell, Zarthek waited. He expected guards to come and execute him. He had committed treason. He had warned the enemy. By all the laws of the hegemony, he deserved death, but he did not regret it. He had spent his life as a warrior. He had conquered hundreds of worlds, but he had never ordered the death of civilians. He had never used weapons of mass destruction. There were rules to warfare, even for the hegemony. Kelvor had broken those rules. The cell door opened, but it was not guards. It was Velkara. You warned them, she said. Not a question. A statement, yes. You know what that means. Yes. Velkara sat down across from him. She looked older than he remembered, tired. Why? Because it was wrong. Because we are not supposed to be murderers. We are supposed to bring civilization to the galaxy. Using bioweapons on civilians is not civilization. It is barbarism. You have cost us this war. The humans now have justification for anything they do. They can claim self-defense, Zarthek met her eyes. We cost ourselves this war the moment we attacked them. The humans were never going to surrender. Not after one battle. Not after 100. We should have left them alone, Velkara stood. The council will decide your fate, but I will tell them what you said. Perhaps some of them will listen. After she left, Zarthek sat alone in his cell. Outside, he knew the humans were preparing their response. He had studied human history. He knew what happened when someone attacked them with unconventional weapons. They did not forgive. They did not forget. They responded with overwhelming force. The hegemony had thought they were fighting primitives. They were about to discover the truth. They were fighting a species that had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that lasted decades. A species that had invented the concept of total war. A species that, when pushed to the edge, pushed back with everything they had. On Earth, transport ships were being loaded. Thousands of them. Troops, weapons, supplies, and equipment. The human fleet was preparing to leave the Sol system. Not to defend. To attack. Captain Reeves received new orders. The Indomitable would lead the first wave. They would strike at the hegemony's shipyards. They would destroy their ability to build more ships. They would show the galaxy that attacking Earth had consequences. As her crew prepared for departure, Reeves thought about those 8,000 people who died on Mars. She had not known any of them personally. But they were human. They were her people. And their deaths would be avenged. The hegemony had started this war. But humanity was going to finish it. Commander Kelvor received reports that the human fleet was leaving Sol. He smiled. Finally, the humans were coming out to fight in the open. He could destroy them in deep space, away from their fortifications. He did not understand. The humans were not leaving to fight. They were leaving to invade. And by the time the hegemony realized their mistake, it would be too late. The long night was ending. The dawn was coming. And it would be a dawn of fire and fury such as the galaxy had never seen. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of hegemony territory. 2,000 ships, not as large as the hegemony armada, but every ship was crewed by veterans who had survived 6 months of brutal combat. Every captain knew their business. Every soldier was ready. Admiral Webb stood on the bridge of the Enterprise, the flagship of the Earth Defense Fleet. Around him, holographic displays showed the entire human force spreading out in attack formation. All ships. This is Admiral Webb. Today we carry the fight to the enemy. They came to our homes. They killed our people. They used weapons that civilized species abandoned centuries ago. Now we show them the cost of their actions. We are not here to conquer. We are here to break their ability to make war. We are here to ensure they never threaten Earth again. All ships begin the attack. The first target was the hegemony shipyard at Galactic HFY. It was a massive complex orbiting a gas giant. Hundreds of ships were under construction. It was one of the hegemony's most important military facilities. The human fleet struck without warning. Missiles screamed across the void. Fighter craft swarmed the defensive platforms. Within 2 hours, the shipyard was a burning wreck. Not a single human ship was lost. Captain Reeves watched from the Indomitable as the shipyard broke apart. Target destroyed. All ships proceed to the next objective. News of the attack spread through the hegemony like wildfire. For 3,000 years, no one had attacked hegemony territory. Now humans, the species they had dismissed as primitives, were destroying military installations with terrifying efficiency. On Axior Prime, the council met in emergency session. Velkara stood before them, her face grim. The humans have attacked 3 shipyards and 2 supply depots. They are striking at our logistical infrastructure. If they continue, we will lose our ability to maintain our fleets. A counselor from the Tauran species stood. His many arms gestured frantically. This is impossible. They are a minor species. How can they be winning? Dr. Okonkwo's words, spoken months ago on Earth, provided the answer. But no one in the hegemony had listened to human warnings. They had assumed their technology and numbers would be enough. They had not understood that humans had spent their entire history learning how to fight. Commander Kelvor received orders to return and defend hegemony space. He was furious. He had been on the verge of breaking the human defenses at Mars. Now he had to retreat. But he had no choice. If the humans destroyed the shipyards, the war was lost. The hegemony fleet left Sol and raced back toward their core systems. But they were too late. The humans were everywhere. Small task forces struck at fuel depots. Commando teams sabotaged communication relays. Human ships appeared, destroyed their targets, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The hegemony military machine, which had conquered hundreds of species, was coming apart. Their supply lines were shattered. Their communication networks were compromised. Their ships could not refuel. Their crews were exhausted and terrified. Captain Sarah Chen, the human diplomat on Axir Prime, watched the chaos from her small apartment. She had been under house arrest since the war began, but her guards had stopped paying attention to her. They were too worried about the war news. She accessed her hidden communication device and sent a message to Earth. The hegemony is breaking. Their civilian population is demanding an end to the war. The council is divided. This is the time to push for peace negotiations. Admiral Webb received the message. He called a meeting with his senior officers. "We have achieved our objectives," he said. "We have destroyed their ability to continue offensive operations. We have shown them that attacking Earth has consequences. Now we need to end this before more people die on both sides. Sir, they killed 8,000 of our people. They used bioweapons. Should we not make them pay more?" One of the officers asked. Webb understood the anger. He felt it too. But he also understood the bigger picture. If we continue, this becomes a war of extermination. We destroy them or they destroy us. I did not become a soldier to commit genocide. We have made our point. Now we offer them a way out. On the Eternal Dominion, Zarthek was released from his cell. The Hegemony Council had pardoned him. More than that, they had asked him to return to active duty. They needed experienced commanders who understood the humans. Velkara met with him in a private chamber. "You were right," she admitted. "We should never have attacked them. Now we must find a way to end this war. The humans will not accept surrender terms," Zarthek said. "They do not want to conquer us. They want to ensure their safety. Offer them what they actually want, which is for us to leave them alone. Completely and forever. No more integration attempts. No more diplomatic pressure. We recognize their independence and sovereignty. We agree to a buffer zone around their territory, and we never ever threaten them again." Velkara was silent. What Zarthek suggested was unprecedented. The hegemony did not negotiate as equals with young species, but the hegemony had also never lost a war before. "I will bring it to the council," she said. The message reached Admiral Webb 3 days later. The hegemony was requesting peace negotiations. They offered recognition of human independence, a buffer zone of 50 light years around human territory, and a non-aggression pact for 100 years. The terms were generous, almost too generous. Webb was suspicious, but he was also tired of war, tired of watching people die, tired of destroying ships and stations knowing that each one held living beings with families and hopes and dreams. "Accept the negotiations," he told his communications officer. "But we meet on neutral ground, and we keep our fleets ready until the treaty is signed." The negotiations took place on a small uninhabited moon. Zarthek represented the hegemony. Admiral Webb represented humanity. They met in a temporary structure surrounded by ships from both sides. Zarthek walked slowly toward the human admiral. Up close he could see how the war had aged Webb. The human's face was lined with stress. His eyes showed the weight of command. Webb studied Zarthek. This was the former commander who had warned them about the bioweapon attack. The enemy who had saved human lives. "Thank you," Webb said simply. "For the warning. You saved millions of people." Zarthek inclined his head. "It was the right thing to do. There are rules to warfare. Commander Kelvor forgot that." "What happened to him?" He has been removed from command. He will face trial for war crimes. They sat across from each other at a simple table. For several minutes, they said nothing. Two warriors who had spent months trying to kill each other's forces. Now trying to find peace. Why did you not surrender? Sarthek asked quietly. My fleet outnumbered you 10-1. We had superior technology. By all logic, you should have accepted integration into the hegemony. Webb smiled grimly. Because we are human. We do not surrender just because the odds are bad. We have survived ice ages that should have killed us. We have survived plagues that killed half our population. We have fought wars that lasted generations. Giving up is not in our nature. That is what I told the Council. You are not like other species. You are Deathworlders. You evolved fighting for survival every single day. That changes you at a fundamental level. And you understand that now? Yes, I understand it. The hegemony is learning it. We thought our triumphs were countless. We thought we were invincible. Then we met you. And we learned that all our victories meant nothing against someone who simply refuses to lose. Webb leaned back in his chair. We do not want to be your enemies. We do not want to conquer anyone. We just want to be left alone to grow and develop at our own pace. Can the hegemony accept that? The Council has authorized me to agree to your terms. Full recognition of human independence, a 50-light-year buffer zone, a 100-year non-aggression pact, and the hegemony will never attempt integration again. In return, you agree to withdraw your forces from hegemony territory. Agreed. But we want one more thing. Open trade and diplomatic relations. Not integration. True equality. Zarthek considered this. It would be the first time the hegemony had recognized a species as their equal, rather than their subject. But after this war, he thought they had earned it. I will recommend it to the Council. I believe they will accept. They spent the next 3 days working out the details of the treaty. Both sides made concessions. Both sides agreed to exchange prisoners and recover the dead. Both sides agreed to share information about bioweapon countermeasures to ensure neither side would ever use such weapons again. On the final day, they signed the treaty. Human and hegemony script side by side. The war was over. Zarthek stood and offered his hand, a human gesture he had learned. Webb took it. The handshake of two warriors who respected each other even though they had been enemies. What will you do now? Webb asked. Retire. I have fought enough wars. It is time for younger commanders to lead. And you? The same. I have grandchildren I have not seen in a year. I want to watch them grow up in a universe where they do not have to fear invasion. 20 years later, Zarthek walked through the streets of Geneva on Earth. He was old now, his silver skin faded to gray. But his mind was still sharp. He had been invited to Earth for a ceremony. The memorial was beautiful. A vast wall of black stone covered in names, human names and hegemony names side by side, the dead from both sides of the war. Neither victors nor vanquished,